up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl JD here, back with another video. Today I am finally going to be talking about the Netflix film Damsel. I know it's been a minute since it got released over there, but I really felt the need to still talk about it because, I mean, why put a time frame on yourself? You know, like, just talk about it if you want to talk about it. That's how I feel. So if you're interested in still hearing my thoughts, I really appreciate you sticking around. So Netflix released Damsel. That was back in March of this year, 2024, and it's starring Millie Bobby Brown, who is a Netflix probably veteran at this point. She was in, I think it's Enola Holmes, and she was also in Stranger Things before that. Now, I kind of gave up on Stranger Things. I don't know if you guys had consistently watched it, but I gave up on Stranger Things at least like 2 seasons in because I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. You know, like, not every TV show is for you, you know? So that's just kind of how I felt about it. I just gave up. So I did not really continue watching that, but I did watch Enola Holmes. I think it was 2 of them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were kind of boring as well. But Millie Bobby Brown is no stranger to Netflix. We also have Nick Robinson, Angela Bassett, Ray Winstone, Shoray. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I'm so sorry. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it because I know I will botch it, but I'm just gonna call her Shoray. I don't know if I'm botching that as well, but sorry if I am. And we also had Robin Wright. So they play kind of the main characters. Now, there was a little bit of fanfare surrounding the release of this film, but not really too much because you know how Netflix, you know, they don't really do that much promotion when it comes to anything that they put out. They just kind of pop it up on your screen and it's just like, hey, you want to watch this movie? You want to watch this show? Okay, here it is. Like, they don't even put much promotion behind it. Maybe they might play a little bit of a trailer after whatever it is that you're watching, but that's pretty much it. You know, it's sad. But here we have the write-up for the film. It says, a young woman agrees to marry a handsome prince only to discover it was all a trap. She's thrown into a cave with a fire-breathing dragon and must rely solely on her wits and will to survive. So it was kind of supposed to be a dark fantasy film, which made me naturally very curious. And I love a good fantasy film, but the storyline has to really be original. We can't just keep releasing the same movie over and over again. That's just not going to work for me. So let's just dive into the story overall, and then I'm going to share my thoughts with regards to what I think maybe transpired as to why certain things didn't really work for me, okay? But I'm gonna save that for the end. Now, we open to these knights and a king, a random king, because we don't really know who he is, and they're trying to fight this dragon. And I love the dragon touch. You know, I can't wait for the next season of House of Dragon, by the way. Okay. Wink, wink. I think that next season is supposed to be coming out really soon. I don't think I did a recap on the first season. I'm probably not gonna, but I am probably gonna talk about the second. Y'all let me know if you're interested down in the comments. But these knights, okay, they're obviously, you know, no match for the dragon, and only the king is left. But in this opening scene, the king doesn't say much of anything. But we later find out that this is in some way connected to the rest of the storyline. So it cuts there, and then we meet Princess Elodie, her younger sister Floria. They're out cutting up some wood and stuff, and you can see that the land is barren and they're struggling. So they spot a carriage coming into the town and wonder who it is, and we find out that it's someone from another area proposing marriage to Lord and Lady Bayford, who are Elodie's father and stepmother. They pretty much voluntold her to accept the proposal of marriage, and that was because their land, obviously, like we saw a little bit of, they could use the money. Their people are suffering and they're definitely having issues with starvation and other things. Now people are leaving this area because there's nothing left for them. So they look at this alliance from marriage between the 2 kingdoms as a means to get things back to where they were. And Elodie obviously doesn't really care for the marriage to someone that she doesn't know, but understands that she needs to make the sacrifice for their people. So they make their way over to this this faraway land, and it does look a little creepy at first, which could be a little bit of foreshadowing when you also consider that they have dragon statues at the entrance. So I think it was a little bit of a dead giveaway. But either way, you can see that Lord and Lady Bayford, aka Elodie's parents, are still questioning things here and there, but Elodie seems to be making herself comfortable. She spots this girl over in another part of the castle, and they exchange a glance and a smile, but who is she is the question. Who is this girl? What is her purpose here? She's not a part of the royal family, so, you know, who is this person? The next day, they end up meeting the queen and the prince who Elodie would be marrying. And they're off to get to know each other while the lord and the queen discuss the bride price, which was a thing in those days. And from a little bit of the conversation that Elodie has with the prince, you could tell that things are a little bit off with him, but she doesn't really pick up on those things because, you know, it seems as though she likes him and she maybe finds him attractive and whatnot, so maybe that's what's happening. So everything is just kind of flying over her head a bit. They end up sharing their dreams and hopes, and Elodie seems to be letting her guard down. And in my opinion, I feel like she's just way too trusting of someone that she literally just met maybe an hour ago. After the discussion of the bride price, we find out that Lord Bayford is conflicted because he's offered a lot of gold, but it seems as though he isn't quite comfortable with leaving Elodie in the hands of these people. And he even snaps at his wife for asking questions, so it was pretty weird. Like, what happened in that room? What did y'all actually discuss? We never find out. You know, what was actually said? We don't know. Lady Bayford finds the queen supervising the women that were getting the decorations ready for the wedding, and she's trying to get to know the queen, but from little remarks here and there, you can tell that she's really condescending. And what really makes it weird is when the queen says she doesn't need more family. Like, this is basically her telling the stepmom, like, run along now. Like, we don't need to get to know each other, and I have no interest in getting to know you either. So that was really weird considering their kids were getting married. Like, what do you mean you don't need to know the bride's family? Like, come again? Right then and there, Lady Bayford knew something was off about these people, and she tried to sway Elodie and her decision to stay and marry this boy, but it doesn't really work. The next morning is the wedding. They're dressing Elodie, getting her ready, and everything seems to be normal with the ceremony that her parents and sister were present for, but then things shortly after that get strange. So there's another ceremony up in the mountains where Elodie had seen something going on the night before, but was simply told that it was just a ritual that they did to honor their ancestors. Yeah, honor their ancestors with torches at night. Okay, this is what he keeps trying to sell to her, that it's just a ritual that they do. But Elodie gets a little concerned when everyone except the queen are wearing these gold masks. And again, it's hella creepy. The queen tells her this story about the king that sacrificed his daughters to some beast to save his land and his people. Then she cuts the prince's and Elodie's hands, and it's basically kind of like some weird blood merging ceremony. So the queen makes it seem like all Elodie had to do was toss this coin into this chasm or deep cave, whatever you want to call it. But nay, that was not all. Now, Prince Henry pretends to carry Elodie back to the carriage, but then he decides, nope, I'm gonna be tossing you into the chasm with the coin. And of course, Elodie is just like, what the hell is going on? Okay, because again, she was already starting to trust this dude. But I again thought that was way too fast to be trusting someone that you never met. Okay, so he throws her into this cave. She is trying to hold on to anything that she could grab, but she doesn't manage to do any of that. She falls and she goes unconscious for a little bit. So she does ultimately survive the fall with some scrapes and bruises. But now what gets me is that she starts screaming, help me. And I'm like, girl, you know good and darn well there's no one there to help you. Everybody that probably even knows that you're probably down there is probably the people from the castle. They're not trying to help you. And these other people that maybe live in this like land, they probably know to just mind their business. Why would they help you? Sis, like really? Anyways, so she's screaming, and because of all this screaming and crying and hollering as she's doing, she basically attracts and wakes up this dragon that's down there, but she doesn't know that that the dragon's down there. She doesn't know anything about this. So now the dragon that they would usually sacrifice these girls to, she awakens. And very quickly, Elodie now realizes like, oh crap, I'm down here with this beast. So now it's taking its time playing with her. And that's when Elodie discovers the dead body of that same girl that she saw the other day. I think they had a whole other wedding for this girl right before. Like the night before Elodie's wedding, like they were like, let's just get these done back to back, just sacrifice them. So I'm not gonna lie, I think Bobby's acting in this scene was kind of bad, but I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later. Like I said, I'm gonna save my thoughts until the end. We're here to talk about the story right now, so I'm just gonna move on. But I do think in that particular scene, the acting was particularly bad, but anyway, so Elodie then remembers that she has the knife that they put into her dress, as if they knew some ish was about to go off. You know, like why would you put a knife in her dress? Like, were you trying to help her, or is that a tradition? I don't know. But she finds this wall with the names of all the other girls that they had sacrificed the years before and also didn't make it out. And then shortly after that comes the visions of these girls before they died. And she thought that there was one girl that got out, but we end up finding out that that girl had also died too. So that was kind of unfortunate. But then Elodie's father tries to rescue her along with a few other men, but that doesn't really work out too well. Eventually those men get picked off, and soon after that, Lord Bayford, or Elodie's dad, he decides to shout out to her like, don't come out. The dragon gets angry and she decides to pierce her little talons into his body. So he doesn't die right away. Elodie and him do have a little bit of a conversation before he passes, but you know, eventually he does die. Elodie does finally get out of the cave, but then finds out that the queen came and took her sister Floria to sacrifice her as well. And I guess that's because they thought Elodie's dad had rescued her, but she pretty much ended up rescuing herself. But Elodie comes back to the cave to rescue Floria. She has a showdown with the dragon, but not before telling the dragon the truth about these sacrifices not actually being the daughters of this royal family. So obviously the dragon kind of figures out and pieces together what Elodie's trying to tell her about the whole blood merging thing, I'm guessing. I think they were just trying to use that as a means to like mask that they weren't actually a part of that family. They were from a distant land, and these people were just using these random girls as sacrifices. So yeah, so after the dragon manages to burn herself, Elodie treats her wounds with the bugs that she discovered could magically make them go away. And Elodie decides to go back to the castle. She finds them trying to lure another girl into being a sacrifice. And of course, they were surprised that she even got out of the cave. She decided to give all the other people a chance to escape before the dragon came in and kind of seal the fate of the royal family. And basically, they have death by fire, I guess. Now comes the rebuilding phase, and I'm guessing the people on the land that Elodie and her family came from are now going to be transported to this new land, and Lady Bayford would be the new leader since the Lord, or Elodie's dad, you know, he was now dead. But the dragon and Elodie, it seems, are now cool with each other. But that's pretty much how the story ends. So I'm just gonna break down my thoughts really quickly. So everything, I just think, went a little too fast. It's like, I'm pretty sure you guys just saw me break down almost everything that happened in that movie in probably less than a quarter of the time that they even took to tell the story, like the duration of the movie itself. So I just think that everything just went by a little too fast for me. There wasn't much time for the viewer to form an attachment or even enjoy the plot. It just seemed like they were like, oh, put this in there, put this in there, we like this, keep that there. Like, you know, it was just kind of like dun 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 dun, pretty much. And it just seemed like it was just too fast. So I just think ultimately they should have shown Elodie, since she's the main character, they should have shown her spending just a little bit more time processing the whole arrangement, the marriage. Everything just went by too fast. Even when Elodie meets the prince, they literally only had one day together before their wedding. And I feel like that betrayal that Elodie felt, like that feeling of being tossed into that chasm after she thought that he was going to be her knight in shining armor, I feel like that betrayal would have been felt a whole lot deeper if they gave them a little bit more time. Elodie had said that they had given each other letters, like they sent each other letters, but I'm like, when did this happen? Like, what? So it just didn't really feel like they developed that enough. It would have been more dramatic and more heartfelt if they had developed that a bit more. Now, I did like the scene with her rescuing her sister Floria and facing off with the dragon, then telling her the truth about the girls that they were sacrificing to her. But I think when it came to the whole history behind that situation, they could have really gone into more detail. They kind of set it up a little bit at the beginning of the film with the king and the knights and all that, but they really could have gone into the history of like what happened to these women and all that stuff. Like, obviously they had the girls show up in these visions that Elodie was having, but I feel like they could have really gone into detail about that like background story. So it just seems so lazy, even with the ending. What is she supposed to be? The reincarnation of Daenerys with this dragon like flying around her? Like, what is supposed to happen right now? So they had a decent idea overall, in my opinion, but I feel like the execution was very basic. But I think that's how Netflix overall likes to treat its projects. Even if these films have the opportunity to be something big, it's like they just treat it like a factory. They're pretty much just trying to meet this quota of movies or TV shows releasing during the year. It just did not feel as though it was something that they really put time and effort into. It was just like, oh, this is just gonna be another film that be released in 2024. It just did not feel as though it was something that was like, let's take our time crafting this, you know, which I feel like in general, that's how a lot of these networks and movie production companies, like how they treat these films and shows now anyway. But I just feel like the idea was good, but the execution, that's just Netflix in general. Like, the ideas are good, they're okay, but they just go about it so like nonchalantly and we don't really care, just slap this together, you know? But y'all let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments. I really wanted to talk about it because I saw a lot of other people giving their input about it, and it seemed like it was going to be a pretty big movie, but then it kind of let everybody down like we thought it would. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.